Thanks everyone for being here today. Chief's going to kick things off. He has to make a little bit of a correction on something from the past, and then we're going to go through what's going on as far as the internal investigation and who's leading that, and then we'll go through a timeline of some of the processes that we've done. So as a reminder, we can't get into individual officers or individual circumstances related to the federal investigation or even the internal investigation. So we have to be very careful and be mindful of that as you ask your questions. But after that, we'll take questions. Thanks. Go ahead, Chief.
The first thing I'll get started with is, when this originally came out, we put out original information. We spoke about the DA calling me and me calling the FBI. It may have been vice versa. The FBI may have called us, then I called the DA to give him a heads up on the court cases. So it probably occurred that way, but then again, our partners are going to have to help me verify that later when we're able to speak about that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was just about our letter to council, everything that we're bringing out to council, and everything that we're going to be answering some of the questions that they had. But first, I want to start with a little bit about talking about, we've worked hard over the past few years that I've been chief to build community trust and to be transparent and focus on crime fighting while reforming the department. As a result, we are in a position to expose a huge internal case for the Albuquerque Police Department and hopefully get the resolution that we're hoping for. And make sure that anybody who's been accused, that we have solid cases both on the administrative side and on the criminal side. As chief, I've worked hard to build relationships with the community, and many times we have to stand up here and take responsibility and ensure that we make corrections in the future. I'm asking the community to bank on the trust that we've built over the past several years and give us time. Give us time to get to the bottom of exactly what is occurring. And the past 2 weeks, I've been in the community. I'm in the community every day. I live in the metro area, and I go to lumber stores, I go to grocery stores, I go to restaurants. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been stopped more than I've ever been stopped. And the one thing that the community has told me is, Chief, we support your officers. Hold those accountable. Chief, make sure that this investigation gets done and make sure we get answers. And Chief, make sure that we don't compromise the investigation. And that is something that I've never seen. I think last Saturday, my wife was about the point of like, can you please not come to the store with me? Yesterday, I met with our newest group of cadets, and we've talked about this. And I've talked about this with our graduating cadets this morning. We went on our chief's run, and in front of the chemo, we talked about this. And we talked about the fact that, and the number one message I get them is that this case isn't just affecting the officers who are there under investigation. It's affecting every single member of this department who wears a badge and carries and has a patch on their arm. But the one thing I've learned during my time as a police officer since 1995 is these cases sometimes reach back home and they impact families. They impact families of the people who are being investigated. I've had a number of officers come up to me and say, God, Chief, this is tough. Even my wife asked me, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I don't do DWIs. I could tell you, my wife, my daughter, they're like, Dad, this is just consuming of all time of yours. So these have effects all the way across the board on everybody in the department. Today with breakfast, we actually had a conversation with our officers. We talked about this, and I listened to them. I let them vent, and we talked about some of the things that we should be looking at. And I got great ideas from them on things going forward, but we're also very limited on the information that we could also give our own officers within the department, which is very tough, but they're very understanding and will continue to release information as we're able to. I think one of the most important things is we know, and I have full confidence in the Federal Bureau of Investigations. We've spoken to them from the beginning. We've worked with them from the start. We've passed information back and forth with them. We're in constant communication as they work on the criminal side and we work on the administrative side. But, I just, as we were working and thinking back through this the past week, we wanted our best investigative team. And we know that so much of our great investigations have come out of our violent crime section. So I just want to announce that Commander Hartsock will be the commander who's in charge of this investigation. The IA individuals involved will answer directly to a specific hand-chose chain that includes Commander Hartsock and a couple other deputy commanders, one that worked elsewhere before coming to the Albuquerque Police Department, and one that has no history within DWI. I also assigned Kyle Hartsock to be in charge of all aspects on the administrative, and anything he finds criminally, he will pass over to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and they've already been in communications. I wanted to talk a little bit like the big question. We got a lot of questions from City Council. Everybody saw the letter that they sent out, and there's a lot of questions that are referenced to timelines and DWI cases. And I really want to emphasize that as we go through this timeline, and you're going to see in the letter, you're going to see where we are today. And where we are today is a testament to the work that we've been working on and completing. And this goes back to sometimes we got to fix systems, and you've heard me say that for 2 years. And I want to thank Josh in the back, Boone from the DA's office, because one of the big fixes to this was actually as a result of a conversation that one of the former members, Chuck Barth, who passed away from the DA's office, came to me and approached me with a project that the DA's office wanted to start, and that project was instrumental in the numbers that you're going to see to this date and in the changes that have already started within the system. So we're going to start with the timeline. And, one of the biggest things that changed and was pretrial interviews. In March of 2022, some changes were made for Metro Court and DWI cases by the Supreme Court. We had approached the Supreme Court, myself, Mayor Keller, and we talked to them about our concerns about preliminary hearings and the shortage of officers and officers getting stuck in court. To their credit, they came back. They did a wonderful job, and they made some changes, and it reduced the amount of times that a pretrial interview would be necessary. If we could go to, the next slide. Here's kind of the timeline. In 2015, 21% of APD cases were dismissed with DWIs, 375. And the number one thing to remember about this is not Chief Medina and Albuquerque Police Department's data. This is information that's been passed to us from the District Attorney's Office and the courts. So in 2016, 1,339 DWI cases, 20% were dismissed, 268. This really started to rise. In 2017, 40% of our cases were now being dismissed. In 2018, 40% again, cases being dismissed. In 2019, this went up to 43. In 2020, we saw a reduction as we think we would see with COVID and everything that the courts are going through, and we made adjustments to the new system. In 2021, the cases were down slightly to 37%. If you go back one slide for me. If you look, earlier when I spoke about changes to the pretrial process, there was a grant from the Transportation Department, and are working with the DA's office to make some changes that helped us. In 2019, as part of the DOJ settlement agreement, changes were made so that IA would enter all missed court notices. It doesn't mean IA will investigate them, that they're being now tracked through IA, and that we would get this in the system to make sure that they were all accounted for. We go through in 2022, we had 19% of the cases dismissed. And that's a combination of a lot of things that we're talking about: fixing the system, changes in different processes, changes in how these cases are viewed. We had 75 IA cases, 56 sustained. In 2023, we had 4 IA cases with all 4 sustained. And in 2024, I think that number is moving up. We currently already have 7 open investigations. Of course, we don't have findings. And that's one of the important things, is that we are communicating with our partners. We have built a strong relationship with the District Attorney's Office, and we're looking to see how can we improve where our court notices were. We know that we got a bulk of court notices, missed court notices in October of 2022, and then we're looking to see where is there a disconnect in the system that we're unable. I can't say it's on either side. We just know that We don't have those cases making it to IA, and that is what we're looking into and we're working to resolve. It looks like we've already made progress. We've gotten a number more in 2024, but that's kind of where we stand right now. You know, in closing, I want to thank our federal partners, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, for their help in this investigation. We have a strong relationship with them. I want to thank U.S. Attorney Alex Ubaez for the letter of support, just kind of reminding everybody we're working with them and that I am limited in what I could say. But everybody who's in here who has been part and has followed a federal investigation knows federal investigations are kept very close, tight, and they're very quiet about them, and they release information when they're ready. And that's how that's going to be with this case. This is a federal investigation. We understand that as a police department, we need to give information to the public, and we're doing our very best job to release information on the investigation when we're able to. And our close relationship with the U.S. Attorney has enabled us to continue to release more and more information. We will be as transparent as possible. As you go through and you see that we provided a lot of details to council in terms of processes, changes, timelines, but there are a lot of next steps. And unfortunately, a lot of those next steps are things that we have to wait to finish getting the key information and make sure. But as we find problems that immediately need addressing, we've been able to be very successful in working with the U.S. Attorney's Office to get that information out and start working with the proper partners to make sure that we start making some changes wherever we need to. Kyle?
So I'm Commander Kyle Hartsock of our Criminal Investigation Division, and I just want to start to say that as we lead this internal investigation, we will ensure that any officer or any personnel belonging to the city of Albuquerque that was either involved in any part of this scheme or knew about it and didn't report it will be held accountable. I have nearly daily calls with our federal partners to ensure that appropriate information is passed on. As Chief pointed out, if criminal allegations come up that we believe are new, we will pass that on, but that our goals are different. While they're doing a criminal investigation that could result in charges, our goals are to find out how this happened, who's involved, and make sure that it is held accountable and that it doesn't happen again. We'll be as transparent as we can, but with an internal investigation, please be patient and understand that releasing any details can affect witnesses or other evidence that we're still trying to get, and we are at a very early stage of this investigation. With that being said, I won't be able to take too many questions, but I appreciate your support.
You know, and Commander Hartsock have begun the process of an administrative investigation. There has been target letters that we stated last week sent to some of the original officers in this. They are getting further information, and they have had a number of other interviews with witnesses, and they'll continue to work forward and work on the case and see what they could come out with. As we're able to, we will release more information, but like I stated, when we're unable to. I wanted to make sure that I didn't just answer this question for that all of the public got answers to questions that we've had recently. I think that was the goal of questions, to make sure the public had them, and that's why we put this packet together. I know did we give them the letter? Mm-hmm. You all have the letter that we've sent to City Council, and about 5 minutes before everybody walked in here, did we email that out, Mike? Yes. That was emailed out to every employee of the Albuquerque Police Department, so they know where we stand as a police department.
Say that they just got a request from local law enforcement asking them to put a system in place as a courtesy. What do you have to say about that?
I don't think, no offense, I don't think you guys, that's like the right path of what's going. I don't know if you're aware, there's a 2014 report, and there's some other reports where committees that were brought together, and I think, Elise, you covered this. Like, years ago, the decision was made, and I'm not asking Metro Court to notify me on every single case. I don't know who they're talking to, but a committee years ago, before my time, before even coming back, made the decision that the district attorney's office would be the one that was best suited to notify the Albuquerque Police Department and other agencies of missed court by officers. We have a system I am prepared to take on as much responsibility as we have to if we have to. We have a great working group. They've already met with the DA's office. We're seeing numbers come in. We got it. We're still working on it. That great partnership is helping, but I can't comment to information that I don't feel is accurate in the direction we're going. There are some cases where the courts would have to notify us in terms of Metro Court. Officer prosecuted in traffic cases. The courts have been in communication with us. They tell us when they see upswings. It would take the easiest way for me to explain this is we could have put processes in place, but the easiest thing for some entities to do is to them report it to us, because the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay more, millions of dollars for us to have a process for us to look these up, when it's the matter of somebody sending a simple notification, officer missed court. And I'm sure that we could create and work a system. So we'll continue to work with others, but that information that we were asking them to be responsible for all cases, I just don't know where that came from. And if you get me more information, I could follow up, but I don't know if that's, I don't know of any of my people who are working that. Do you?
So, Gilbert, you're gonna say something? So based on accuracy, we played the specific question, we played it throughout for them to hear it, and that was their response. We also have their full statement, but in a nutshell, they're pretty much saying that local law enforcement just asked them a week ago as a courtesy to put a court system in place. So we didn't trim, cut, or anything. It's pretty straightforward.
Is Josh here? Josh, do you know any, Josh, how about you, Josh Boone? Do you know anything that we're working with Metro Court on any other system? I know Josh Brown is working with the DA's office. Do you know conversations with the Metro Court? We could,
I have not recently had a conversation with Metro Court about that.
okay.
John, I'm sorry, can you say that? Can you
No, that's okay. Let's skip to that. We'll talk about that afterward. We're
Okay.
saying that we don't have an answer to that right
Yeah,
now.
I could
Does
check,
anyone else have a
find
question?
Josh Brown and ask him if that.
Last week, you also mentioned there really wasn't a streamlined approach, right, to the missed court notice process. So kind of along the same lines, prior to finding out about this alleged scheme, we'll call it, what was the process? Talk me through an officer misses court, what happened?
There's not just one process, because you got to remember, there's different cases within the system. And like I just explained, there's traffic violations,
Okay, so a DWI case.
a DWI
An officer
case.
misses, doesn't show up for a DWI case.
Yes.
What is the process of somebody within the department getting notified?
We rely on being notified by the district, if they didn't show up to court, we rely on being notified by the district attorney's office.
And that's
And
one
that
of those
comes-
missed court notices?
This, one of those missed court notices that go to the Albuquerque Police Department.
And to who does it go?
And it goes to court services.
Okay, and is that fully staffed? Is there?
Court
somebody-
services does have a supervisor who goes through them. And the supervisor is the one advising us that we haven't been receiving, that there's limited court notices that we've gotten.
So
Court
are you saying
services-
that this is on the DA's office
No,
then?
we're not saying that, because we still are early in this investigation and we have to check and see. I cannot point fingers at the DA's office right now, because we have to make sure, like, this is very early, and this is where it's very difficult. We're still in the investigation to see. I can't sit here and say they didn't get to us. We need to do an investigation to make sure and see what is occurring.
But if you're saying it's their responsibility to generate that notice and let you know.
We're getting
and you're
into
not getting
too
those.
much detail of the direction we're still going with our investigation. Let us, go ahead.
Let me just clarify too. So the court services, we had that existed before, and I want to say in 2021, it was a sworn officer that led that, correct? In 2021, we mixed it with the SHIELD unit, which we created to help with discovery and that sort of thing. So that's all, and then we have a civilian in charge of that. So she's the one who gets information from the district attorney's office on a number of things, but including missed court. And at some point, those notices stop coming in. That's what we're looking into.
So that's just, when did these notices stop coming in?
Our last batch that we're finding in our system is September of 2022.
September 2022,
We
you stopped
received we
receiving.
believe we received, don't quote me on this, but I think they told me 78 missed court notices were received at that time.
But prior to that, you were receiving notices. How did you not notice then or pay
No, this has been a constant struggle. When I was back as a deputy chief, I approached the DA's office and I asked them for our missed court notices. So we have had to work at getting our court notices over, and that's part of the investigation. We'll have to look to see what individuals knew and what was occurring.
So there could be somebody within the department, your department, that was withholding these, or?
We don't know that. We're looking into all the possibilities, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
Yes, Elise?
So with the notices when they were working, is that just if the case gets dismissed because an officer failed to appear, or is that any time an officer failed to appear for a hearing?
Which notices? The ones,
DA's office.
that's generally they fail to appear in a, and it's changed over time. That's generally they fail to appear at a hearing itself.
Okay.
Generally, before that, it was untrackable. It was very problematic tracking with the pretrial interviews, and that's why the DA's office worked so well with us to fix that.
Okay. Or like if, discovery wasn't turned over, if the lapel camera didn't make it to the state, would that generate any kind of notice from the DA's office?
Generally, no. I think that's something we should add to the list, though. Yes, ma'am.
So with these IAs, I feel like it's the first we're hearing about these IAs related to these. When it says sustained, what does that mean?
That means that they did violate policy and there was some sort of discipline. Their findings.
There was quite a few. If you went back the other slide, it looked like more than 100 that have been sustained, or there was a lot of them. And are any of those involving these?
We haven't got to that point where we're filtering through it. I could tell you that I have looked at some IA histories of individuals, and I'm not seeing a great pattern of sustained violations of misconduct.
And these were happening all along. This isn't like this scheme comes up and all of a sudden you're going back and looking. These IA investigations that were being opened and sustained were happening all these years.
These ones were already over and done with. There's
That's what
no
I mean.
way
And
we
the
could
previous
get-
slide,
yes.
the same. Like they were being done
Yes.
before.
They
the
were
whole
being
time.
done before.
Well,
That's
since-
why this one says 7 open, because since this is broke out, we haven't even had a chance to finish those cases.
So when you have more than 100 sustained IAs about missed court dates, how does that not raise a red flag over the past several years?
That's one of the things that we have to look into that we're still investigating.
Why would there be like 196 dismissals but only 75 IAs? Like why are there fewer IAs than there are dismissals?
I don't know, that dismissal part, we don't, do you know?
Just in my experience, dismissals can happen for a variety of reasons. Other civilian witnesses become unavailable, other things occur in court cases outside of just an officer FTA, and so you should generally always see that number lower than the overall dismissals.
Okay, so the dismissals is not dismissals because of an FTA. The dismissals are all of the dismissals.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Based off of what you know now, should there have been more IA investigations over the last several years?
This is what's very difficult. Look, we have 35 dismissals, and I know what Matt said earlier, shouldn't raise a red flag. We know changes were reducing dismissals. That's a way lower number of dismissals than that. So it's easy to say, even if we opened an IA on every single dismissal we have, at the most, it should have been 35. Yes.
Natasha, KKOB. So you started this with chatting about the community support. Thank you for sharing that feedback. What about those who ask you to step down as a result of this issue?
The Albuquerque Police Department has made great strides over the past several years. We will continue to work for the community. We will continue to improve, whether it's fighting crime or if we need to move forward with reform efforts. So we will continue to do business as we are with the Albuquerque Police Department at this point.
Can you give an update on the DWI unit and what happened to it, where it stands right now?
They have been shifted to different field units, and they're responding for DWI calls from those field units. And I got some numbers earlier this week. I just don't remember what they are, but they did have a number of DWI arrests last week. Yes.
Whose responsibility is it to notify you when an officer doesn't show up to court?
I think if you're talking about a DWI case, in general, we rely on our prosecutors to notify us about a DWI case.
So the DA's office.
at this point in time, that's what we're looking into. We're looking to research to see what has happened to our missed court notices. I can't blame the DA's office because, like I said, from point A to point B, there's a lot of things that could happen, and that is part of our investigation.
Can you expand on that?
No, I won't expand on that.
Okay. As far as court notifications in this whole system that we're talking about here, ideally, what does it look like for you? Is there a way to just do it under your department, leave the DA's office out of it, or do you need that partner for this? Ideally, what does it look like?
Ideally, that we all work together. Like I said, I told you, we could find a solution, but it's gonna cost taxpayers money for something that I don't think we need when we could just all work together. We're already working together. We're working together to increase the amount of missed court notices and that we have a better system. I mean, we're already seeing results of our working together. So we'll continue to work together and ensure that we also respect tax dollars and we are most efficient as possible.
The point A to point B, there's only two parties involved in that. It's Albuquerque Police and it's the DA's office, correct? Just want to
Yep.
clarify. Okay. And then another, and I'm hoping I'm asking a question that my friend here answered in her reporting, but was there ever a notification process for the pretrial interview being missed? Is there one now and was there one before?
I honestly couldn't answer that. There should have been, but I could tell you from my days back in the days that I don't know. I'd have to look into that. We could get back to you on that.
But there's no pretrial interviews on these cases anymore.
Yes.
That's one of the big factors, is there's no longer pretrial interviews for
Well, I mean, I was talking
DWI.
about
Prior. I'd have to look into that, how that process went. I would suspect that it wasn't a very effective process, because we did make changes thanks to the DA's office in 2020, and we could see the instant impact of those changes and the Supreme Court change that has reduced this to the number that you see for 2023.
Can I just clarify a couple things
Yes.
too on that? So there's also the issue of, in the former pretrial interview process was heavily dependent on the defense attorneys. And sometimes, it didn't involve directly the district attorney's office. So we had officers interacting directly with the defense attorney. So that was potentially one problem that doesn't exist anymore. On the previous slide, I think in 2019, we talked about doing these IA investigations. So that was a broader thing under the CASA where all misconduct is reported through our blue team system and it's logged and all of that. So because of that, all of that's there now. So that's another kind of maybe loophole that maybe exists before as these things work through the system. Now it exists and it's plausible that we're seeing fewer missed court or missed hearings because of that.
Was there ever a system in place when APD was being notified by the DA's office or the courts that officers weren't showing up?
Obviously, you saw we used to get a lot more missed court notices before. So, yeah, there was a system in place.
And you're telling us you're working on figuring out why that stopped?
We're not going to get into details, but yes, we are working to figure out why we weren't getting as many notifications or where our notifications are going. Now look at it. I'm not pointing fingers anywhere. We just don't know.
I'm going to mention the FVD process too.
Yeah,
We're looking at FVD.
we're looking also at the MVD process to automate it also because we have gotten information that there's several MVD notifications were coming in one way, and we need to really divide and make sure that we single out a missed court and update on what happened to a case itself. Yes, ma'am.
I'm getting in the weeds here, but on the sustained, what is the usual, if it's something, a missed hearing is sustained, what would be the discipline for that? Is there like a strike 3 situation where it's like you missed a few, was there?
It follows our charter sanctions, and I think, is it a 6 or 7? It's a 6. So typically on face value, it's a letter of reprimand. But the due process allows for PDH, Superintendent Eric Garcia and his group on the IA side are responsible for that. And just a reminder to everybody, I hope everybody remembers, Chief Medina does not impose discipline. Discipline goes through the Superintendent of Police Reform's office, and all internal investigations go through the Superintendent of Police Reform's office. They typically will have a PDH with this individual, and they will determine if there's aggravating or mitigating circumstances. So a mitigating circumstance could lower the discipline, and an aggravating could raise it. And our charter sanctions on a second discipline would move that 6 automatically to a 7. And a 7, to a 5. A third one on a sustained 5 could move that to a 4. So it does increase penalties with frequency in these cases.
At what level is it like termination? Is that a 1? Was it 1? Is that
At 1. So it'd have to be
like
6, 7, 8 sustained with it. And remember, they fall off, 7s fall off in time. So you'd have to add. So we'd have to sit down and do math on it.
Some of that's in the city council.
When you say fall off in time, you mean like there's like a statute on it?
There's a statute on the ability to use it for progressive. Josh, real quick, did you meet, I know you're meeting with different court entities. Did you meet with the Metro Court, and are they figuring something out for traffic sites or for DWI sites missed court?
So I haven't met with them yet. DA's office is,
The DA's office, yeah, so we met with the DA's office.
Metro Court's the one that said that. I got that email too. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if they're talking about a different agency or something.
I don't know. I'll look into it. I mean, I'm not gonna say we're a big agency, 1,500, 1,600 employees, maybe somebody's talking, but I have not received that information, and I'll look into it.
When, earlier we were talking point A to point B, one being APD, one being the DA's office. When you reference APD in that, is that the court services unit?
Yes.
Okay, so how long has that unit been up and running?
Since Harold Medina joined the police department in 1995.
And it's always been staffed?
Yeah.
Is
I mean, I could check. There's always going to be turnover and people leaving, but as far as we know, and during this time period, the same supervisor has been there.
And is that unit under investigation at all?
I'm not going to comment on where we're going with this. This is internal
I
investigation.
think I could help out. So it's not simple as A and B, DA's office and APD. So it comes to court services, and it used to go to commanders, correct? So if there's
Yes.
missed court, it would go to the area commanders or whatever commander. That changed under the CASA
In
to where it goes
19
to internal affairs, and it's logged in there, and they take care of it. So
And
it's
that was in
not,
2019?
yes, so that's our special order. We can provide that as well. But that was for overall discipline, not just DWIs or missed court.
So is it possible then that prior to 2019, this was able to happen because commanders weren't bringing the notices where they were supposed to?
I'm not going to hypothetically answer. Like, there's a lot of hypotheticals in there. We'll look through this, and we're going to evaluate it, and we're going to look.
We have a better process now.
Yes. Yes, Nick.
So on this IA team that's looking into it, will you exclude anybody that has previously served in the DWI unit?
For the team?
Yes.
I already built the team, and I think I was very clear that I built the team without people who served in DWI. Yes.
Chief, do you plan on attending the city council meeting on Monday?
We're in discussions about how that's going to look and how it's going to roll out, and I will continue to communicate with their leadership, and we'll make a determination how that goes. Under my legal advice from city legal, looking at this, because it has factors involving labor and it has factors involving legal issues and a criminal investigation, their recommendation is that we ask for an executive session and I brief them. I've made the letter to be as transparent as possible. I've made the letter with the bulk of the questions public. And some of the bullet pointed questions, like I said, the advice I'm receiving is that we ask for an executive session, so we'll see if council leadership is open to that. I had planned, and I even told them I would, but like I said, I've gotten legal updates on that. Yes, ma'am.
Have any target letters been sent out in addition to the 5 that were already sent out related to this? Have any other people been sent target letters that are now being investigated?
No, we're still interviewing witnesses.
And it's still 5.
Still five. Yes, Elise.
What do the 5 officers who are on administrative leave, what are they doing right now? What do they have to do with?
They have to we have processes where they have to be available during certain times. Basically, they're transferred to day shift by phone. They have to be available, and if we need them, they need to return to APD.
Are they checking in regularly? So they have to check in?
I think there is a process to that. I'd have to check with IA, but we'll let you know. I think there's a process, but we'll check.
At the end of the day, what this involves, right, is following through on cases, holding people accountable. The fact that the scheme, as you said, may have gone back a decade, People got away with this. What's your feelings towards, like, do you feel duped? Do you feel like you could have done more?
I will tell you this, as somebody who worked DWI cases in the course of their career and had hundreds, if not thousands of cases go through Metro Court, I want to thank Josh Boone in the back. Because in 2020, he made a change to this process, and you're seeing the impact and the reduction in the dismissed cases by the Albuquerque Police Department. This has been a defense attorney's game for the 25 years I've been here. You could look, and every officer will tell you, and I met them this morning, continuance, 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 till an officer misses and the case dismissed. That is a symptom of something that I have said from the very beginning, and at the very beginning of this I said, we met with Supreme Court Justice, myself and Mayor Keller, because we were concerned about the amount of time officers on preliminary hearings were spending in court, and that we needed our officers on the street. They, to their credit, they came back with that Supreme Court ruling which freed up officers like you would not believe. This is symptoms of a system that needs to be fixed. The number one thing, and this morning I had breakfast with officers, and one officer brought this up, and I was like, man, that officer is brilliant. Systems that struggle, systems that have loopholes, are really open to corruption. And I absolutely am going to continue to use that statement, and I thank that officer, because it's so true. Like, it couldn't magnify it anymore. But like I said, it's unfortunate that in today, 2024, myself, Mr. Boone, Josh, all of us, we're dealing with stuff that we anticipate started decades ago. And we've done a lot of things that have got us to this point. But we will continue to dig and look and leave no stone unturned to make sure that we get to the bottom of this. Two more. Go ahead, Elise, and then I'll go to...
So I know with the IA, you said they have to check in. Have they been checking in? Has APD been in contact with all 5 of the officers?
I have to check. That's like I said, the discipline part happens on Eric's side. He gives me updates. I haven't asked that specific question or what's going on. So I know some of them may be communicating through their attorneys and stuff. So we'll get you some information.
I have one more question.
Yes.
If they resign, if they end up getting charged, does the internal investigation continue? And if so, like, why? Or
I intend to fully work these internal affair cases, and in the past, I've made sure that we work cases till they're closed, whether the person here or not, because we want to make sure that we get all the information we can, and sometimes it could expose others or bring us additional information.
Hey, just a quick question. I think it was valid what our colleague said, because I wanted to ask that as well. I know you stated you're in talks with city councilors and what have you, and you had some intentions of coming to the city council meeting on Monday. But one of the questions, I know you stated you asked them in bulk, but still, city councilors as well, what do you have to say to them questioning your position as chief regarding the public having faith in you at this point, in the way that this was handled? Let's say if this didn't come out at all, did you have any intent to just bring it to the public without, messing up the investigation or whatever the case may be, tampering with the investigation, certain details that cannot be out?
I don't understand your question. So is the question the original investigation?
It's a triple question. So
okay, let's ask one at a time.
All right, that's cool. What do you have to say? Because city councilors, in that letter, they're questioning your position as chief, as far as the public having faith in you. What do you have to say about that?
The Albuquerque Police Department has made great strides. I am committed to us improving our ability to solve crimes, lower crime, and for this department to move forward with reform efforts and for us to be the best department possible. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and then the last question, because I felt like it was a triple one or whatever, that's cool. Did you have any intent in informing the public of this before it got out? Because you're saying that you're big on transparency and what have you. Are you just doing this because it just came out? It came out.
The DWI case?
Everything, the investigation.
Without a doubt, I was not going to mention that. And get this very clear. Like, I want everybody to hear this very clear. Chief Medina was never, ever going to, ever threaten the ability for us to get to the bottom of this by announcing this to the public prior to my partners with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office saying it is now time for us to go public. When the time is right, we said we would go public, and I will stick to that. I kept this very tight to my chest. Myself and a handful of staff at APD knew about this, and we were not going to let this investigation get out until we felt we had to.
The people weren't really asking the details of the investigation, honestly, because it's under federal investigation. But I mean, in terms of just being transparent, did you have any plans of just saying like, hey, our DWI unit XYZ, this is what we're doing, but we can't just like you guys are doing now, we can't release.
Before the search warrants of FBI?
Just in general, like, did you have?
No, we didn't even think about that. And I think everybody else here in this room can see that. Before the FBI initiated their search warrants, it is very unfeasible for us to say that out of an abundance. You know what? If I would have done that, somebody should have came to me and asked me why I compromised that investigation. There's no way we could release information prior to the FBI serving search warrants.
I understand, but not compromising the information. This is why.
But Faith, honestly,
Let me finish. Hold on, let me finish because I don't want to interrupt you. Regarding that question that counselors are asking, how can the public have faith in you? I don't think anyone is asking you to reveal the whole investigation, details, whatever the case may be. That as far as the public losing some sort of trust, some sort of faith in you, they felt blindsided. They felt like, okay, you could have at least told us our DWI unit is under investigation. When we have more details, we'll release it. Because this is what you're doing now, right? That you feel like your back is up.
I got this. You know what? To the citizens of Albuquerque, Chief Medina is telling you one thing. If I would have divulged to the public that the DWI unit was under investigation, every DWI officer with any common sense that was doing something wrong would have ceased what they were doing wrong, and it would have compromised our investigation. And we will not ever compromise an investigation to tell the public we have a secret investigation occurring. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody.